80 years ago, Nazi Germany implemented the infamous Nuremberg laws, excluding German Jewry from all aspects of German life and culture. 70 years ago, hundreds of the leading Nazi war criminals were prosecuted in a series of trials known as the Nuremberg trials. The Nuremberg trials established a number of legal precedents that changed the course of international law. Therefore, it's very appropriate for me to invite to the stage the Honorable Ms. Ayelet Shaked, Minister of Justice for the State of Israel.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Bnei Noor Yekarim, dear survivors, Chief Rabbi Lau, ambassadors, אני עומדת כאן בבירקנאו, המכונה בפי עמנו גיהנום עלי אדמות. כבת העם היהודי, כאזרחית של מדינת ישראל, כשרת המשפטים של מדינת ישראל, אני נרגשת ומלאה ביראת קודש. באתי לכאן עם בעלי, אבי שני ילדיי, טייס קרב בצבא ההגנה לישראל. בכל פעם שהוא הולך לשירות מילואים אני חוששת. כמוני כל האימהות והרעיות במדינת ישראל, השולחות את היקר להן מכל לשרת למען העם והמולדת. ואני תוהה, מהיכן האם הישראלית מוצאת את כוחות הנפש לכך. בעומדי כאן במקום הנורא הזה, שממנו לא שבו רבים מבני עמנו, אני מבינה מדוע על בעלי להמשיך לשרת. כשם שברור לי, כך ברור גם לאביו שנמצא כאן עמנו ואיבד את כל משפחתו בשואה. כך ברור לכל אלה ששרדו את התופת ולעם ישראל כולו, שקיומו של צבא יהודי אינו דבר ברור מאליו. עם ישראל מצויד בהבנה שכל זמן שיהיו אמהות ורעיות אמיצות שיחזקו את בני זוגן ואת ילדיהן בשעה שהם הולכים לצבא, הזוועה, החורבן והשואה שחווינו לא יתרחשו עוד. לעולם לא עוד. ומתוך הבנה זו אני עומדת כאן, נרגשת וגאה. On my way here, I struggle for words fit to be said in this place. The Holocaust raises for many of us many questions. Perhaps the most fitting perspective with respect to the Holocaust is that reflected in the phrase coined by Professor Shalom Rosenberg. The evil of the world declared the Jew as its enemy on earth, and since that day, every Jew must ask himself, in what way am I the enemy of evil? I stand here in Birkenau, a factory of death, where over 1 million Jews were murdered, where women, children, the elderly, young men and boys met with horrific and bizarre death. We must remember that among the millions of victims of Holocaust, not all were murdered in the concentration camps. Many perished through cruel death in ghettos, were murdered by firing squad over death pits, or poisoned in gas tracks. Babies killed in their mother's arms, another form of abuse that the mind cannot grasp and the world cannot articulate. We remember those who perished and grieved their loss, 6 million women, children, seniors and boys whose only sin was to be born Jewish. We rightfully focus on the victims, but I like to talk about the murderers for a moment. Given that we cannot comprehend the cruel and criminal acts perpetrated, we tend to say that the Nazis were beasts. By labeling them as inhuman, we attempt to somehow define and explain. The truth is that we cannot qualify this murderer as beast because even animals do not do such things. The incomprehensible evil committed by Nazi war criminals is pure human evil supported by theories, a cultural background, and rational decisions. They were not members of fringe group of German society, but whether its elite, its more dignified members, the crème de la crème of the society. The inability to comprehend, which I spoke of earlier, nevertheless begged asking a number of phrasing questions in a loud voice without fear. There were many accomplices to the crimes within Germany's society, as well as in other countries that played a role in the Holocaust. Some accomplices held weapons in their hands, some were in the forest, others in the ghettos, some in concentration camps, others in extermination camps. Some wear a physician right coat or judge's robe, others simply orchestrated propaganda. This was a methodical and organized murder industry driven by a clear ideology. Azriel Karlibach, an Israeli journalist and thinker, wrote, "They did not kill them because the Jews were weaker than them, but because they were better than them. They abused newborns without the ability to speak because the Jewish baby's gaze from birth radiate with the imprint of justice and blinds the eyes of evildoers. They burst into attics where innocent children learned Torah in a strangled voice, because as long as that voice is heard in the world, Satan cannot lie peacefully. Judenrein. The cities must be completely empty so that impurity can fill them." The British historian Ian Kershaw, in his book, The End, attempts to understand why toward the end of the war, when it was clear to Germany that it had no chance of prevailing and that the end was closer than ever, why it continued to hunt for Jews until the bitter end. Nazi rule saw itself as liberating humankind from Jewish ethics and from the Jewish presence in the world, and was prepared to sacrifice its own people to do that. To illustrate, in 1944, on the eve of the German defeat, the Germans attempt to send hundreds, thousands of Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz, to here, in order to have them exterminated. The notorious death marches did not cease to operate until the very last moment. One of the survivors who is here with us today, Ed Mosberg, told me that the German collected all of the women, including his sisters, in the camp and shot them one day before the camp was liberated. So how can we be the enemy of evil? The March of the Living that we have just completed, that is the ultimate response. Am Israel Chai. And here in Birkenau, another key question, no less painful, arises. Where was the world? Where were the enlightened Western nations when the Nazis started to brutalize the Jews? How could Britain choose not to bomb the tracks of the death trains in Europe, while at the same time deny Jews entry into the land of Israel and even expel others from Israel, today impending death at sea? So much evil and folly of mind in words, actions, and inaction. While the crematoriums right here were operating at full speed, and the train tracks that led to it were within search and range of the Allies' planes. Such impervisiveness of heart to do nothing and to fail to reach out to the hopeless Jewish people. In 1944, the Allies enjoyed absolute supremacy in the skies of Europe. Some of the strikes were intended to destroy German fuel-making installations tens of kilometers away from Auschwitz. Holocaust survivors recount that they heard the Allies' planes and prayed that this would end their misery. It is difficult for me to think of their terrible frustration when they realized that planes were flying further and further away. Hitting the train tracks would have stopped the shipment of hundreds of thousands to their death. Bombing the camps themselves would have put a stop to the killing spree. Hundreds of combat flights, hundreds of strikes against military targets, and it was not possible to dedicate just a few of those to stopping the extermination. I simply cannot comprehend it. There is no way to go around it. The entire world deserted the Jews. Today I can say with pride that we are not longer at the mercy of the world. Jewish blood will never be forsaken again. Even today we witness a modern form of anti-Semitism. Transfer of Jews to resettlement in the East has morphed in recent years, as we heard just a few days ago from a British Labour MP, into a proposal to transfer the State of Israel to the West. History has taught us that the forced transfer of Jews from one place in the world to another has led to the next stage. The stage where it is quickly suggested that the Jew have no place at all in the world. We are seen as belonging neighbors here, no there, roaming the land, and whenever find us, kill us. Hatred of Israel has become hatred of the State of Israel, but beyond this, nothing has changed. In the past, there were calls in Europe, Jew, go away to Palestine. Today, they are calling in Europe, Jew, get away from Palestine. Europe of 70 years ago, which was a product of many generations of classic and popular anti-Semitism, spread across the whole of society for ages. Judophobic Europe, that Europe might be dead. However, the new Europe is not able to free itself from its ghost of the past. They continue to hunt Europe without respite. The old Europe, so go speak, is unwilling under any circumstances to release its grip on the new Europe. I would like now to read a letter written by the late Ofer Finger from Kibbutz Givat Chaim, who fell in the Battle of Armament Hill in 1967. I can feel with all my soul the horrors that the terrible Holocaust. I feel that from that horror and hopelessness emerged the power within me to be strong. I want to know that never again will vacant eyes stare at me from behind electric fences. They will never look at me like that, only if I'm strong. If we are strong, proud, never again to be led to our own slaughtered. Ofer signifies, in my eyes, the rise of Israel. Ofer lost his life while protecting the national home of the Jewish people from the Arab armies which sought to destroy it. Sovereign Jewish protection instead of helplessness and hope for outside help. Does such a state have a place in the world? Does it have a right to exist? Here in Birkenau, I will say this. The existence of the State of Israel is justified in every moment, even when it enjoys, as we do today, a time of prosperity, even in days of great strength. Dear students from around the world, in the spirit of the Passover Haggadah, the Holocaust survivor and poet Abba Kovner added, in each and every generation, a person must see himself as if he himself left Auschwitz. In the name of that commitment, we must face reality with open eyes, see the opportunities, but also the dangers. We must remember that even today, there are calls to exterminate the Jewish people. We must remember that even today, anti-Semitism is still living and breathing, sowing seeds of death. From this place, I'll call upon you and upon all the countries which you represent here. Study the lessons for the most terrible of horrors and do not let their seed sprout again. Fight anti-Semitism and hatred of mankind in whatever form they might take, and do whatever it takes to prevent feeding the violence which repeatedly hangs above our heads. I hereby vow on the behalf of the Israeli government. Never again will the life of Jews be a risk while the world stands idly by. The people of Israel have risen from the ashes of doom and established a country to be admired and esteemed. A country which set a moral bar for the entire world. In the spirit of יחזקאל prophecy, ונתתי לכם לב חדש ורוח חדשה אתן בקרבכם. Armed with this precious gift and his great power, we will continue the work toward building a better and advanced society which shall seek to enlighten for the entire world. This is our commitment to our 6 million brothers and sisters. This is the way to light the next step in the march of the living for the people of Israel. Long live the people of Israel. Am Israel Chai.